Good evening. My name is Maggie Sharon. Oh, sorry. No, decline. Good evening. My name is Maggie Sharon. Welcome to the December 8th meeting of the Dover-Sherborn Regional School Committee. I call this meeting to order at 5:32. This open meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. Information on how to join the regional school committee meetings and meeting agendas are posted on the Dover-Sherborn School District website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and anything that you broadcast might be captured by the recording. We're going to begin with an opportunity for public comment. I am going to, in the interest of time tonight, just limit public comment to no more than 15 minutes. I don't think that will be a problem, but just in case, just because we need to start our next meeting at 6:30. Community comments, an opportunity for members of the community to be heard. We respectfully request that you please make your comments brief and move the discussion forward by adding new information. Try to avoid repeating points that have already been made. For community comments, please virtually raise your hand and wait to be called on. When you speak, please begin by stating your name and whether you live in Dover-Sherborn or Boston. Community comments are an opportunity for the school committee to listen to members of the community. It's not a forum for answering questions or engaging in debate. Once the public comments section of the meeting has been concluded, we will move on to other business, and at that time, unsolicited comments from the community will no longer be permitted. This is our standard operating procedure in school committee meetings across our three school districts. Thank you very much. Before we move, are there any community comments? Mr. Andrews, Rob Andrews?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to introduce myself because our other Dover Warrant Committee members couldn't be here tonight, so they might pop on, but I'm representing the Dover Warrant Committee tonight. I'm the vice chair and typically go to the meetings, but I'm here tonight.
Well, we're delighted.
And I have children running around, so you may have the video go off a lot.
It's okay. We're cool with children, cats, dogs, all the animals, and the humans. All right. Any other community comments? Great. In that case, we will close community comments and we will begin with the warrant report. Are there any questions or concerns about the warrant report this month? Great. So that's just for your information. The next item on our agenda is proposed changes to the 2021-22 Regional Program of Studies. We did have an opportunity, I believe, last time that we met to hear a little bit of detail about that, and the Program of Studies is included in our packet. Does anyone have a presentation from the district on that? Dr. Keogh?
Yes, Maggie. When we met last time, those were the changes that John had to date, and we actually did not anticipate many more changes. However, since that time, his academic standards committee, which is his leadership team in the building, has met and has come up with a recommended change to the program of studies. So I asked Mr. Smith if he could come and just share that. I think if I could make a recommendation, it would be if you want to approve the program of studies now, you could do so and then approve the amendments at a subsequent meeting, or you could just put the whole thing on hold after hearing John's thing and consider the final vote at the next meeting. It's up to you.
Absolutely. If we elected or decided to defer voting upon it until next meeting, is that going to cause some unforeseen, issue, or is that something that would be accommodated?
I don't think so. I initially thought it might because of budgeting and things like that, but there really are no costs associated with what John's talking about, what he wants to offer tonight. So I don't see a problem with that.
Terrific.
Do you, John?
I do not, Dr. Keogh. No. I think that's perfectly fine if that's the wish and the will of the regional school committee.
We're still a little ahead of schedule for the program of studies. Remember, we moved it forward a few years back, and that's been an adjustment for John because they aren't typically talking about course sections. That's why we're still, playing a little catch up. But if it's okay with you, I would have John share what he was wanted to share with the committee, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be really important. And then we can talk and debate about it for a period of time, and then we'll just come to a decision about whether or not we'd want to vote on it tonight or we'd like another month to kind of talk over the changes. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sharon and Dr. Keough. The important decisions and additions that we have put forward to you for your consideration and potential approval at some point is a semester-based course in financial literacy. I think that we all firmly understand and know the importance of our young adults understanding finances, understanding credit, understanding loans, understanding savings, etc. And this is something that Mr. Baruti and I have been working on for a little while now. And the math department did some research over the summer and early this fall, and were able to, through our academic standards, put forward a proposal which was unanimously approved by our academic standards group, which is made up of department chairs. It's made up of members of guidance. It's also made up of some teachers. It's a long-standing group at Dover-Sherborn, which vets potential courses. And, you know, we had a long discussion about different things, and the feeling was this was really positive. The proposal, Ms. Sharon, would be for the course to be open to juniors and seniors. It would be both math credit and an elective credit. So students could actually take it for an elective credit. They could also take it for a math credit. It would be offered at the honors and the CP level. So students would also have flexibility within those levels to choose, and it would be enticing students at different levels and comfort levels to be able to take the course. Our ultimate plan is for the following year to be working on another semester course that would join with it, likely a business math course, which would also be an honors and a college preparatory level course. In this way, students could actually take their last year of mathematics by taking the financial literacy course and then subsequently the business math course. For this year, because of the pandemic and the planning and everything, really, and the time crunch, we're really kind of ready to pilot this financial literacy course. We would, for this year, offer it both in the fall and the spring, meaning next year, so that students would have opportunities to take it either semester, and then subsequently, based upon the active interest in the course, you know, it's possible not in this coming budget cycle, but the following budget cycle, we may look for an additional 0.2 request in mathematics. We don't know, because we have to kind of look at our other math courses, and can we consolidate? Can we tweak things around? Can we change some things around? By doing this, we feel as though we'd be giving students another opportunity, a really valuable skill. It would also give other students who have an interest in mathematics, but a different type of perspective. So typically, as many of you know, having kids who've gone through the system, we have our students typically we'll start with geometry and then algebra 2 and then pre-calc and then either calculus or statistics and probability and statistics. We feel it's important to offer another opportunity for students, and for those students who can get creative with their schedule, the potential to also offer a way that students can actually double up. We see that happen sometimes in science now, and that would be perhaps something that we could look at for mathematics. And really the only other change or tweak is adding another section of college placement chemistry that is in line with what we have for college placement biology. And it's still a CP, but it has a smaller, typically it's a smaller class, and it also works at a more reasonable pace for some students. So that would be put in place of the grade 9 physics. Typically, our students will take physics either grade 11 or 12. And speaking to Mr. Lavasser, the science department chair, and Ms. Lottie, who has taught that physics course, we feel they'd be better served by taking the CP2 chemistry course because as you know, right now in the state of Massachusetts, it's still a requirement to pass a science MCAS examination. And because we have so few kids who end up taking the grade 9 physics, we feel that it would be better to give those kids time and to take that their sophomore or their junior year. So those are the two pieces of additional information that are being presented to you this evening that were not part of last month's proposed changes. The other changes are really all pretty straightforward. A lot of it is wording. Some of it is tweaking things based upon the fact that we're in this hybrid remote environment right now, and just a couple name changes.
Thank you. Do we want to take, I wonder if we want to separate the conversation into the new courses and questions about the new courses, and then just questions about program of studies in general or other concerns. Does that make sense? Are there questions about the new courses that are being proposed?
I have one just quick question. I noticed that life skills class had been removed. Is that because of the new math skills?
No, the life skills was a special education program that under previous special education administration, they had planned on bringing forward a life skills program. Right now, we do not have the cohort for that program, and that was the recommendation of the Pupil Services Director, Kate McCarthy, to, as of now, remove that as an option, just so that for full transparency, people in the community knew that we don't currently have the life skills program.
Okay. Thanks.
Do you currently on the faculty have folks already in the math department who are able or qualified or interested in teaching those courses? I know the financial literacy and maybe the business math. I know you talked about possibly needing an extra FTE, but with the current personnel, would it be possible to run those courses if, say, less people took some other math and more people wanted to take this business math? Could it be a revenue neutral situation?
It could absolutely be a revenue neutral situation. Looking at the numbers, we absolutely have somebody on staff who would be able to teach the financial literacy course. The student has, or the faculty member rather, has been not only researching this, but has been inquiring about some programs that would lead to a certification. So clearly they're already certified in mathematics, 6 to 12, but they would also be able to, there are some, and it's not like a financial advisor type of certification, but it would be more of being able to provide access to students. We're looking at this financial literacy course actually being really kind of neat. It would be a project-based course where students, we could actually link up with, we've already talked about linking up with maybe Needham Bank or one of our other community partners that sometimes is looking for opportunities to work with us. And so part of it certainly would be, understanding these important terms and how things work, but then it would also be putting it into place in a project-based environment where students would be responsible for various budgets. I had the pleasure of this in a different district, and we did, in fact, partner with local banks and financial advisors. And I'm sure there's plenty of people in these communities that we could tap into to come in and to speak to our kids, whether it's Zoom or in person, about these things. And one of the neat things we did was an actual competition. You were giving so much money as a budget, and you had to formulate it, and you had to figure out, at the end of a year, where would you be? And we found it to be a really interesting exercise that's a true life skill, and the kids found it to be really engaging and fun.
John, does this is this something that the NEASC has been pushing schools towards? Because I know that the state has been talking about making it a requirement. There's been a lot of talk about the financial literacy being a huge issue. Kids are getting to college and they're, encumbering $20,000 worth of debt and not even knowing where to begin paying it off.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Keogh. There's two places. One, certainly the NEASC, but the other place that Jim Baruti and I have been talking about is within the state of Massachusetts, and we wanted to be ahead of the part making it mandatory, and by developing a program so that we could then also see what works best for our kids. So absolutely, those are two big driving forces for such a course. In addition to, it's the right thing to do, and in addition to, it can be very, very useful.
Do I have any other questions from the members of the committee about the program of studies? I'm starting to wonder if it would be reasonable to put forward the motion to approve it tonight. Just a straw poll. Anne, you have a?
I have a really quick question.
Yeah.
And it actually was quick to answer. John, it just says, and I apologize if you answered this last time, but for course, it says removed the wording about if you have a scheduling conflict, talk to the director. Is that because it's now been changed where it is, so there isn't the conflict?
That is correct, yes.
Okay,
so because we have created, a standalone block opportunity, so that instead in the past, there was a conflict. We've now created a schedule, and moving forward next year, we'll have that in place where there won't be a conflict.
Okay, yeah, I was just checking. So that is moving forward. That's great. And I have to say, I love the idea of the literacy, the monetary literacy.
Thank you.
I think that's great. So thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So just before I entertain a motion, are any other questions or concerns or folks who would like me to wait a month? Okay. With that being said, I guess the final thing I would say is I fully support the move towards financial literacy and business math courses. And I specifically appreciate the creation of these courses with opportunities for kids to take it at different levels of challenge and difficulty, because I think that it provides a more integrated educational setting for folks. And it also provides some more opportunities for sort of us to get away from the tracking if a kid decides they're doing really well and they want to take the challenge and back and forth. So thank you to all of the folks who are making efforts in that way. So if there are no further questions, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the proposed changes to the 2021-2022 Regional High School Program of Studies.
And have you so moved?
Do I have a second?
Judy Miller, second.
Okay, motion made by Ann Hovey and seconded by Judy Miller. Do I have any discussion? Michael Jaffe.
Thanks, Maggie. Just a brief comment. Again, going to be a no vote because I believe that the existing GPA exclusions and weighting, as well as honors and AP prerequisites, are fundamentally unfair and inconsistent with our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and principles of challenge success. I am pleased, we heard last meeting, that the Academic Standards Committee will be taking up some or all of these issues. So I do look forward to hearing back about the resolution of these issues, even if perhaps that's mid-cycle, maybe later this year even.
Thank you, Mr. Jaffe. Is there any other discussion? Okay, if members could unmute themselves, please. Kate Potter?
Kate Potter, yes.
Ann Hovey?
And have a yes.
Michael Jaffe?
Michael Jaffe, no.
Judy Miller?
Judy Miller, yes.
And Lynn Collins?
Lynn Collins, yes.
And Maggie Sharon, yes. Thank you to the Academic Standards Committee. Thank you to Mr. Smith and the other members of your administration who put this together. And thank you for the work that you're doing, as Mr. Jaffe has said, to examine the issues around weighting and all the complex things that go with that. We'll look forward to hearing what you come back to us with. I believe the next item on our agenda is the Finance and Operations monthly report. Dawn.
Yes, so you have your packet, your financial statements as of November 30th. There's very little change from what we presented in October. The only thing I wanted to point out is that we have continued to almost exhaust our CARES reopening grant. So I gave you updated numbers in those categories. And as you know, those funds need to be expended by December 31st. So we are clear on our way to accommodate that. We've kept a running list of expenses throughout the year that would qualify. And so what I'm going to do with the last little bit is just go and see what we want to pull over that makes sense, and how we budgeted the grant, and that would cause us the least amount of amendments that we may have to take place. So just know that we have used that money to put it to good use, and it's been extremely helpful for us as we've gone through this reopening with what it allowed us to do without having to go back and ask the towns for more money. So it was huge for us, and we'll give you the final report probably at your February meeting once everything's settled. So are there any questions on the revenue or expenditures for this month, or anything else on the normal financials?
I just have a quick question about the CARES money. Now, is that something that then will be provided separately at when we have the year end? Like we look at sort of when you close the books for this year, will that all be pulled out separately?
Well, it's actually it's already accounted for separately as a grant, just like we do.
Just as a grant. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's already on its own in its own little fund. And so what we'll do is, if you remember, I give you a summary of our grants. That will be one that would be included on for fiscal year 21. That won't be one of those grants. We hope that carries forward. So when we report our expenses to the state at the end of the year, we pull all the grants and our general funds, and that all goes as our operating expenses for the year.
Okay.
So none of those expenses are in your operating expenses that you're looking at on your financial statements. They're all outside because they're sitting in a grant.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Dawn, I have a question, which it's okay if you are not prepared to answer it tonight, because it just came up for me when I was listening to the news tonight. It looks like Congress is not going to reauthorize the Family First Coronavirus Act, which I think was the thing that was allowing us to offer paid leave to employees who needed to quarantine. So what I'm curious about is if that is the case, as it appears to be, as that deal goes through or doesn't go through Congress, that'll expire at the end of the month. And I'm curious, does it need to be negotiated, or how will that change how we respond to our employees who need to quarantine? And does it matter if they're exposed to in or out of school? Judy?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know the other thing that needs to be considered is starting January 1st, employees can take paid family leave under state law, and the Commonwealth pays for that. It's different. The criteria are different.
But
taking that leave,
even for municipal employees?
Yeah, we're not participating in that.
Yeah.
Municipal employees aren't part of that. You know that?
Yeah, we're not part of that.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is not the
I gotta
first.
believe that something's going to happen, because there's more than just there's a lot of variables that we have in the FCCRA, whatever, leaves as far as quarantining. I mean, as long as the COVID is still here, I feel like they're going to have to come up with some way for us to accommodate that the virus is still around. So I think that may be what was on the news tonight, but I've got to believe that something's going to be somewhat extended because the circumstances aren't changing.
Okay.
So we'll just have to wait and see how that all plays out.
Okay.
Can I add, sort of related to that? I noticed that we've not been using our substitute, or we still have a lot of our substitute budget left. Is that because people are filling in, like teachers and administrators are filling in when necessary, as opposed to bringing in subs? And if so, is that something that we think is going to continue, or is that something that we think we're going to need to bring in more subs?
We don't have as many people in per week, and some people will probably, if they don't have to drive to work, will still probably teach when they may not be filling 100%. But our sick time is down. Would you agree with that, Don?
It is, but it's also sometimes what drives up our substitutes is any long-term substitutes, and we really don't have any of those right now. That's really, in most cases, what drives that number up on an annual basis. And across the schools, we really don't have anyone out on medical leave that's causing that more long-term substitute rate to kick in. But as Andrew said, I mean, if a teacher really only has to report to school 2 days a week, so it leaves less days that we're looking for substitutes too. And both schools have been really good about utilizing staff that's in the building for the day if they can.
Thank you.
Other questions from members on the budget, on the monthly report? Okay. Moving on to also Dawn.
So I'm going to try to share my screen.
Pardon me?
I said I'm going to share my screen, and just a small little presentation. You all received the more detailed
that would be fantastic.
In your packet. It's interesting that I'll just preface this by saying it's interesting that we're bringing forward fiscal year 22 budget as the state still does not have their fiscal year 21 budget. So just know that that's sort of the way we're operating right now. But let me pull up quick little. Here we go. Okay, so keep in mind that this is our version 1.0 of the budget, December 8th presentation, and there are a lot of unknowns right now, but this is sort of our launching pad for moving forward, and it also serves the requirements of both towns that we present or turn over to them a draft budget as of the end of the year. So this will both serve multiple purposes. So our assumptions, and this is taken from your overview memo that was in your the packet. Obviously, we're assuming that we're going to be back in regular operations next year. That's in person 5 days a week. And if you looked at your enrollment, we're looking at level enrollment. So steady we go there as far as the number of students that are attending both the middle school and the high school. Other assumption, obviously, is that we are building our budgets in compliance with the town's budget guidance. And you have both those budget letters or guidance letters in your packet. Just a quick summary, the town of Dover is requesting level service or reduced expenditure budget. So they're just asking you to look at your fiscal year 22 budget in comparison to are you spending your fiscal year 21 budget? And also, obviously, looking to make sure that we're not cutting services and allowing for us to pay any costs that are associated with keeping the same level of service. Sherborn is, as we go through this every year, is looking for level funded budgets, but allowing 2% for salary increases. And obviously, our budget was derived with in alignment with our district strategic plan, and obviously the acute awareness of potential post-COVID-19 state budget financial constraints. As you know, fiscal year 21 has turned out to be a little more positive than we thought, but that was with purpose by using the rainy day funds from the state, which they say will limit what they use in fiscal year 22. So they have set us up for the assumption that fiscal year 22 could be where we see sort of some of the impact of the economic outcome of the COVID that we've been seeing since March. Budget drivers, obviously, payroll and related benefits represent approximately 80% of your operating budget, and it drives our annual budget. We have contractual agreement increases of 2% across all of our bargaining units, but keep in mind that's in addition to your step and lane increases for our educators, which can range from 4 to 13. And there's only one little bucket in there that's 13, so that's not widespread, but that is the range. Right now, we don't have an estimate from West Suburban for healthcare increases, so we're estimating right now 8.5%. That's more in line with what we've been seeing over the last 2 years. And we're pleased to say that we still have approximately 45 of our participants enrolled in the high deductible healthcare plans, which obviously provides for lower premium costs for both the employee and the employer. And in addition, we have no new staffing positions for fiscal year 22, so we're not asking for any additional funds for FTEs. We've continued to do our trend budgeting. You'll see throughout your detailed budget line items places where it goes into the red. I think one thing that we're really good about doing is any one-time cost that we add in the budget in 1 year, we always make sure we take it out the following year, so it does not continue to increase your base. And you'll also see student enrollment impacting the town's assessment. So that's a budget driver for the towns because that's what computes the annual assessment percentage. Fiscal year 22, the operating and capital assessment percentage reflect a small increase towards Sherborn of 0.63 and 0.65% respectively. And also keep in mind that we have seen some impact in the last couple of years positively because Sherborn is increasing their property values, but that has an impact on the minimum local contribution amounts, which when we get those updated in January with the new budget package, that could have an impact on how the assessments fall out. So just some financial statistics of where we sort of stand with our version 1.0. Our overall operating budget increase is $625,186, which represents a 2.39% increase over fiscal year 21. Just for status or for comparison, fiscal year 21 increase was $860,000. Dover's assessment is increasing by 3%, whereas they saw a smaller decrease or increase in fiscal year 21, and Sherborn's assessment is actually sort of staying similar. That is involved in a couple of different things. One is the minimum local contribution, but also the change in the assessment percentage. So looking at your revenues, you can see the Dover and Sherborn assessments and the percentage that they make up of our total budget, and then your Chapter 70 and 71's amount. Remember right now for Chapter 70 and 71, we use the fiscal year 21 amounts. You'll notice that it doesn't look like we're using the fiscal year 21 amount for Chapter 70, but remember we took $200,000 in June from Chapter 70 in your budget and used E&D. And so what you're seeing is that we did not see that much of a decrease in what we actually were awarded in Chapter 70. So we use the actual number on the cherry sheet. Everything else relatively remains the same. And this first version of the budget is not utilizing any excess and deficiency. That'll be something we will evaluate as we get further down in the budget process. Looking at your expenses, you can see that the salaries and benefits obviously are driving your budget increase. And then again, you'll see where other operating expenditures, we've decreased it by almost $65,000. The increase in transportation is just that second year of our contract. Remember, we took the big hit last year in fiscal year 21, so that we will see smaller increases in transportation over the remaining years of the contract. And on buildings and grounds, we just actually saw a small increase, mainly because of our wastewater treatment contract that continues to have small increases every year. And then the debt continues to decrease. So just next steps, you'll have time to look at all the details that are in your budget book, and we can answer questions. I think traditionally you will send your questions to your chair, who will then accumulate them for our office to answer for you at your January meeting. We also at that point will be doing a capital presentation. So I don't have for you tonight your 5-year plan, mainly because we've got a lot of work in progress right now all good work that is going to have an impact on what that 5-year plan is going to look like. So we have held off until your January meeting, which at that time I'll bring Paul Anastasi, our facilities consultant, with me, and we will walk through where we're looking to move forward with our larger capital projects. I will say that we are not looking to do any of the large projects for fiscal year 22. And I think I might have mentioned that at the last meeting. So right now we're looking at your capital for fiscal year 22 probably being in the range of about $350,000. So it does not include any of the larger roofing projects. And you will see that when we present the 5-year plan in January, that we have moved those to fiscal year 23 and even one out to fiscal year 24 based on sort of the advice of a consultant that we have just engaged with, who's doing a complete roof assessment or building assessment for us. And so we'll have a report from them that we'll be able to present first to the building committee prior to your meeting, we're hoping, and then to a summary of that report to the whole committee in January. But that's been a very beneficial step that we have taken that's given us more clarity and in both how to attack this and the current day costs. Because remember, we've been using the on-site insight report numbers in that, so it's nice to actually have some validation as to what those projects are going to cost. So I'm looking at January being our big capital discussion, because there'll be very little new budget information to talk about other than capital. In February, you have 2 meetings, February 2nd and 23rd. We will present any new information that we have. Typically, at that first meeting in February, that's when we'll be able to take any budgetary impacts from retirements, because any acknowledgements that or any notifications that we get now don't really become final until after February 1st. So at that time, we'll be able to bring forward any savings from retirements. And then the 23rd actually works out really well, because the day before is the vote for the new rates for healthcare. So we'll be able to have those numbers updated for you. And right now we've got a joint meeting on the calendar with both of the town finance committees for February 24th. And we will round it out with our budget hearing and final approval of the budget on March
2nd. Thank you, Dawn. I know as you talk, I have questions and then you answer them. So I really appreciate that. What other questions do we have from members tonight? Yeah, Michael?
Well, Dawn, would you mind putting your presentation up again? I just had a question on the assessment page. I was just unclear as to it looked, I wasn't able to square those numbers, the percentages.
Let's see what happened here.
If this is going to take too long, I could
Okay,
ask offline.
Resume slideshow. Oh, I don't know why it's not going back. Oh, here we go. So here?
Yeah, there. Yeah. So and I don't know, maybe I'm just having kind of a brain freeze here, but it looks like if the overall operating budget increase of 2.39%, but then the 2 town increases are 3.04 and 4.51.
Right. So you have to remember, if you have the budget book, right? So
Yeah.
You've got to look at your assessment calculation. So that's our overall budget increase, but then you take away the Chapter 70, the Chapter 71, all the other things, and then you get down to what we spread in the assessment.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Thanks.
It doesn't correlate. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Sorry for that. And then just another quick question is whether I guess the 3 initiatives that have task forces, or at least that I know of off the top of my head, DEI, sustainability, and communications. Is there going to be anything, any material costs related to any of those anticipated?
Not that has been brought forward at this point. I think sustainability, a lot of that is we're going into what is, is built into how we operate, and will obviously be a big piece of our capital projects going forward, potentially looking at solar once we have the new rooftops, and we are looking at other ways that right now we're at sort of throwing sustainability a little bit out the door, but in everything that we do, we're looking at that, and that's just part of normal operations. The diversity and inclusion, I'm not aware of anything that needs to be added to increase the budget. Remember, the superintendent has a reserve fund of approximately $15,000 that sometimes some of these projects, it's there to cover those. And so that's always incorporated each year's budget.
If I could just add, just add to that, Michael, the communications committee as well. So the big push from the communications committee was to rework our website. The problem with that, trying to do that right now, is just it's bandwidth. I just don't think people have the bandwidth to do what it takes to implement a website change. I've been through it before, and everyone, the salespeople always tell you how easy it is, and it's so user friendly, and it's no big deal. And the secretaries and the administrators go crazy because it's a ton of work ultimately to get it up to where you want it to be. And we just felt like this is not the year to try and tackle that. Next year, I wouldn't rule that out. But I also know that when we talked about the cost of a new web page, we saw it as about $10,000, and we didn't think that was a budget buster, and that we might actually be able to make that work again with like the superintendent's account. The same thing with the DEI work. We do want to do a help me someone. Audit. Yes, an audit. But those costs really, really, really fluctuate. And, the DEI work, I'll talk about it at the JSC, has really gone very well. And I guess I should probably save it till then. But that, in terms of the budget, I'm not seeing a cost associated with that yet. But again, this is first run. So we still have time if we wanted to add something. And I wouldn't rule that out. And sustainability, you're right, Don. I mean, it's we want to get some of that solar stuff up and running, but we have to get our roofs up, and this is not really, unfortunately, sadly, is a hard time for us to be as efficient as we would like to be, because we have to open windows and things like that when we're running our furnace. So just hasn't worked out the way we would have liked. But I'm not seeing any big costs coming from that committee either. But a great question.
Thank you.
Other questions from members of the committee regarding the budget? Okay. Just for clarity, I'm taking a motion to, we're accepting the budget tonight, and it's including the capital, but it's not including the capital?
No, you're actually, what we always vote separately anyway. So what you're going to be voting for is the operating budget as presented.
Okay. And is there any vote associated with the activity fee?
Yes, that's a separate vote.
Okay, so we're going to vote on that after, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You need to vote on that separately because it's a revenue, it's separate and apart from it. So it's sort of multiple accounts, action required.
Fantastic. Have we discussed the activity fee yet? I think we did. No. Okay. So
no, this is I'm just bringing it forward to you this evening.
Okay.
But it's part of the budget. So obviously you roll out new fees when you're developing your budget, so that if you approve it, then I can incorporate it into the next version of the budget.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the recommendation for the fiscal year 2022 operating and capital budget as presented this evening.
So just
Operating.
the operating budget.
Just operating.
Yes.
Fiscal year 2022 operating budget as presented this evening.
Sorry, do we have to present this as our high water mark or make some sort of notation
This is
about
really,
that?
you're really approving this so that we can send it on to the two towns as required by December 31st.
Okay.
But I wouldn't, obviously we don't want to, this is just the preliminary. We always just approve the first budget and you will then continue, you will approve your last budget in March, the final.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
And Javi, so moved.
Thank you, Anne. Do I have a second?
Lynn Collins, second.
Second by Lynn Collins. Is there any discussion? Okay. Could you take yourself off mute for a roll call vote? Judy Miller,
Judy Miller, yes.
Ann Hovey,
And Javi, yes.
Michael Jaffe,
Michael Jaffe, yes.
Kate Potter,
Kate Potter, yes.
Lynn Collins,
Lynn Collins, yes.
and Maggie Sharon, yes.
Thank you. So
are-
our reps
Sorry,
that
are we
are on,
discussing the activity fee tonight?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Activity fee.
And I was just going to tell the reps online, so hopefully you'll accept this, and these are the budgets that we'll submit through you guys, right, for the December 31st deadline. Perfect. Okay. So part of the strategic plan, obviously, on my end was to continue to look at all the fees. And so the one that we sort of attacked this year is the activity fee. So we looked at both the middle school and the high school. And as you know, they both charge $45, whereas the middle school, if you remember your students being there, it's the opportunities to stay after school, now virtually, and do things like art, math, much more low key than what is offered at the high school. So we view the middle school fee as still being appropriate at $45. It's a one-time fee at both schools for any activities that you partake in for the whole year. On the high school, on the other hand, though, because of the vast number of offerings and the costs associated with the stipends, we are looking to increase that fee to $75 per student for the whole year, effective the fiscal year 22 school year.
Thank
I
you.
think I provided, yes.
Yep. Thank you, Dawn. Do I have any discussion?
Just a quick question. Is the for families that so need it, that fee would be waived or subsidized?
Yep. As with all extra fees, scholarships are always available. They would just go through Mr. Smith.
I have a question.
Kate?
I don't disagree that $75 for the whole year for an activity fee is still a pretty good deal, but it does strike me as quite a big increase over 1 year. Has it been a long time since that fee has been assessed?
Yes.
Was there any?
It's probably been 10, 15 years before that fee has been assessed. So we did talk to Mr. Smith about this, whether or not we wanted to sort of increase it over 3 years or just go ahead and take care of it in 1 year. And we thought it was probably better just to go ahead and just, as we said, rip off the Band-Aid and bring it to where we thought it should be and put it on a more regular. So part of the strategic plan was to put all these fees on a more regular review cycle so that, it just didn't get biased every year. So we've been doing the building rental funds. We've looked at athletics. We've looked at lunch. And so now we're looking at sort of the last round of it, which is the activity fees.
And remember, when Don says as part of the strategic plan, that was one of the key buckets was resource efficiency. So, and I would concur. I believe we were paying the same activity fee when my 30-year-old daughter was at DS. I don't think it's changed in a long, long time.
Right.
Am I to understand then that we are not going to raise lunch prices or parking fees? This is the only fee that we're raising this year?
Right. The lunches we have on a 3-year plan, although we will be looking at lunches, but that's mainly because there's a lot more cost associated with that goes into the lunch program. But no, we're not looking to increase parking or athletics for fiscal year 22, which are the two other large fees for the high school.
And can you elaborate on what the rationale is for the specific number? Like what is it that caused us to jump the $30? Like what does that connect to?
So I think it really was I think looking at equitable to the volume of things that you get to do. So you pay one and you can actually partake in multiple activities. So I was trying to relate it a little bit also to the stipends that we were paying out and have it pick up a little bit more of that.
Right, because this is really only subsidizing.
Right.
The fee only subsidizes a portion of the cost. What percent would you say, Dawn?
Well, it's right now there's only it's about 100,000 when we're only taking in 13,000. So by increasing it to 75, we pick up an extra 90. So we're picking up maybe a little like 20% of the stipend cost with the $75.
So we'd still have a long way to go if we were really to go dollar for dollar.
Are we trying to get there? Like, is there a need for?
No, but I think we need to get into a routine of looking at the fees on a more regular basis, and I think this one has been so. This one has not been looked at in a long time, and I think in relation to what the middle school is paying. So it's actually looking at the comparisons of the $45 of the middle school and the $45 in the high school, and the greater value that, or the opportunities that you have at the high school. We were trying just to make that look a little bit a step up to what you're offered.
So theoretically, the middle school could reduce their fee on that rationale.
Well, a little bit, but it covers a piece of the operating of the after-school activities, but there's also other advisors. If you look at your budget, you'll see high school activity advisors, middle school activity advisors, and the middle school after-school program. So there's still a lot in that middle school activity advisors that they're able to take advantage of, but for purposes of this comparing of the fee, we left that out of this comparison because it's more integrated with some of it's more integrated into the school day too.
Other comments or questions? Okay. I guess I would just add that, I always hate to have fees. Like, I just feel like, people pay taxes, and I feel the same way about sports. I just wish that we didn't have fees. And also, I'm looking at my warrant committee and colleagues from the towns, and I know that they need us to moderate the budget, and I don't want us to have to look at cutting these opportunities for kids either. So I guess I'm reluctantly supportive of doing this. Do I have a motion to approve the fees for this upcoming fiscal year at $45 for the middle school and $75 for the high school as recommended by the business office?
Right, so you only have to vote on the $75.
No, we don't have to approve the 45?
No, it's already approved.
Okay. Do I have a motion to increase the fee for high school activities to $75?
So moved.
Judy Miller? So moved. Do I have a second?
Sure, Ann Hovey, second.
Thank you, Ann. Is there any discussion? Okay. If you could take yourself off mute. Michael Jaffe?
Michael Jaffe, yes.
Kate Potter?
Kate Potter, yes.
Lynn Collins?
Lynn Collins, no.
Judy Miller?
Judy Miller, yes.
Ann Hovey?
Anne have a yes.
And Maggie Sharon, yes. Thank you. Okay, we have as a next item on our agenda, the consent agenda. It includes the minutes of November 2nd and also some donations. And if I'm scrolling to remember what the donations were, I don't know if somebody is already there.
Girls soccer. It's for girls soccer coaches.
Thank you. So thank you to the people who have donated towards the girls soccer program. Appreciate that. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Lynn Collins?
I actually have a question. Should I wait for discussion?
You can, or we can discuss it before we do the motion also.
Okay. Yeah, it's sort of a question. So how does this donation work? So what about the other programs? Like, do they just not get the benefit of these donations? And how does that work? I mean, I know as a captain's parent for basketball, like for whatever reason, we collected money from the parents to pay for assistant coaches. And so is there sort of an equity issue across sports if we accept donations for payments to coaches, or am I missing something?
Well, I'm not so sure that we have all of the donations in yet. So this just came in. So I'm not so sure that you're not going to see boys soccer showing up at your next meeting. There's sometimes a little slow to come in. So, but that is, as far as I know, and John, you may know more, that's just up to each each team how they handle the extra staff that they bring on board.
I would add, though, Lynn, it's a point well taken, and it's something that perhaps we could look at as a district, just to be sure that we are in fact being equitable. I have heard instances of it becoming a Title IX issue, for example, where some sports are getting the donations and some are not, and male-female discrepancies. So it's something that perhaps from a policy perspective, we could take a look at that. I know in my previous district, we did exactly that, looked at donations. There were a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, from what I could tell, like even the amount that's paid to each person is subjective. It's whatever maybe the coach feels the person should be paid. And
decades ago over in Holliston, I think it was, they cut the band and somebody wrote a check and said, I'll just give you 40 grand for the music program. And that's that the school committee wasn't sure they wanted to take it. And there was a big back and forth about that because of the equity. So it's a point well taken, and it's probably something that the district should look at.
Lynn, if I may, the donations cannot exceed what you would pay for a junior varsity coach. Now, that being said, there's plenty of other equity issues that do need to be looked at and addressed. Since coming to Dover-Sherborn, certainly it was something surprising to me, and it's been discussed at athletic advisory. And there was at that time with the parents who were serving not an appetite to relinquish that ability to bring on some additional support staff. But you're right, some sports then end up receiving it and some don't. Very few that don't, frankly, but there are some examples in given years, yes.
That you know of where people have been asked and nobody came forward with a contribution?
For this fall?
No, I'm saying in the past that you can think of a team that came forward and asked for supportive staff and needed a donation in order to do it, and they were denied?
No, I've never seen them denied. It was more of the program through the coach and through the captain's parents and discussions, and we'd like to have this person on board. And so it certainly was more collaborative, but I have not since 2013 witnessed a situation where it's been denied.
Perhaps that is something that the athletic committee could look at examine and maybe perhaps give us some hard numbers to consider in terms of who's getting these and who's not, or how it's shaking out. I think that might be a good use of that committee. And just a suggestion.
Can I also, so on the ACED committee that John, you and I were on, not this most recent version, but the time before, we did discuss that and talked about teams being decided, like who needs a coach, who needs an assistant coach. And then teams are saying, well, we also need a goalie coach.
Right.
And so that's part of the discussion as well, as the what do teams feel like they need? What does the district or the athletic department determine that they actually do need? So that needs to also be part of the discussion, because that's, I believe, where it actually originated, was specialty coaches.
That's correct.
And then it's just sort of ballooned from there. But I agree, it's something that would be good to really review and talk about.
Yeah.
Maybe between athletic advisory and ACED, because I agree, and we did talk about that when we were looking at stipends in Appendix C.
I agree, and I would respectfully also ask that school committee involve with regard to policy too, because I think honestly, if there isn't policy, unfortunately, I think people will still try to maneuver around it. And what we don't want to have happen is payments made to people outside of the school process, which Dawn has done a really good job of ensuring that everything goes through the school, that it's all documented, because I think in the past that was not always the case.
Right. It's definitely not just athletics. It has a lot of our programs have had people wanted to provide additional supports, and that's a challenging issue, by the way, not unique to Dover-Sherborn. It's a challenging issue for a lot of school systems that I've been associated with.
I fully support all of this whole conversation. I think it's an important conversation. I think connected to that conversation is the issue in general around fundraising for sports. And, sometimes fundraising becomes more a request or a demand for payment on the part of the students participating in the point. And I understand the challenges faced by captains' parents. In my life, I've been one. And that's very challenging. So, I think having a child join a sport, they pay their fee, they get a message from some captains' parents that we've decided that, we can't sell chocolate bars, we're just going to assess a fee. And if you can't pay it, it's okay. You can just ask us. I think that puts people in a very difficult situation. I don't think that's what we want to be all about. And anything that we can do to discourage that kind of thing would be really, really fantastic in the name of equity and just being a person. That's really frustrating sort of thing. Thank you.
Well, and to link up what you just said, it's not only that, it's saying, this, we're going to charge this fee. And by the way, part of this fee is so we can have an assistant coach.
Yeah, who's like coaching your child as we speak. So now you're in a really awkward catch-22 situation with your, little, whatever player. I totally agree. So if we could just put a call to action for whatever committees that need to attend to this, that would be really fantastic. On that note, do I have a motion in this situation to approve the consent agenda?
Michael Jaffe, so moved.
Motion by Michael Jaffe. I think I saw Ann speaking also. So is that a second, Ann?
Sure, I'll second.
Fantastic. And if you just take yourself off mute, Ann Hovey.
Ann Hovey, yes.
Judy Miller.
Judy Miller, yes.
Lynn Collins.
Sorry, Lynn Collins, yes.
Michael Jaffe.
Michael Jaffe, yes.
And Kate Potter.
Kate Potter, yes.
And Maggie Sharon, yes. The consent agenda is approved. But as we're sort of wrapping up, we have some really, I thought, really fantastic communications and detailed communications from both the principal. Thank you to Mr. Smith and also from Mr. Kellett. I just, you guys have just, I could talk all night. We're over time. So you guys have a lot of phenomenal things going on. Thank you for sharing those things with us. We really appreciate them. If you're watching tonight, go get the packet and read the report. There's a lot of really fabulous things going. Anything before we depart that folks want to comment on with regard to the reports from the principals or assistant principals? Okay. Thank you. Keep doing the PD, everything. And on January 5th, we will also be reviewing, I believe, the town report. And that's just for Dover. Is that correct? Am I?
I don't think that's just for Dover.
Okay. The town
I think-
report.
I think we do both those town reports at the same time, but
Okay.
I can get back to you on that. I thought we did them at the same time.
Okay. And I think that's it with those items on our agenda. I'd like to invite a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Judy Miller, seconded.
Lynn Collins, second.
Second by Lynn Collins. Any discussion? Okay. Maggie Sharon, yes. Judy Miller
Yes. Judy Miller.
and Hovey.
And have a yes.
Kate Potter,
Kate Potter, yes.
Lynn Collins,
Lynn Collins, yes.
Michael Jaffe.
Michael Jaffe, yes.
And with that, we are adjourned.